Welcome everyone. We hope that you've all managed to get onto the ASPI Wi-Fi because we're going to talk a lot about WeChat today, and we wanted to make sure that everyone downloads WeChat so you can all see how amazing it is and how we really believe it will take over the world. Next one. Thank you. Is it? Great. So thank you all for coming. My name's Chloé, and this is my colleague Vanessa, and we'll introduce ourselves more in a second. We're really excited to be here. It's our first luxury conversation event, so you guys are the first to ever witness this, and we hope it's the start of a long list of events that we'll be doing across the world. Today we're talking about a really important topic, which is how to capture the attention of Chinese millennials. A lot of you in the room today are maybe looking at how to develop in China, or you're already there. There are 500 million Chinese millennials today, and they're a really important demographic. So we hope that we'll shed some light about how you can go about capturing their attention. So, as I said, my name's Chloé. I have a very complicated background. I'm from Luxembourg, from UK. I was born in Belgium, and I've been living in Asia for the last 25 years. I'm not 65. I moved there when I was very young, and it's been a big love story with China for me. And my studies included being at university in Beijing, so I read, write Mandarin. And 8 years ago, I set up a business in Shanghai where we help luxury brands to connect and engage with Chinese luxury consumers. And it's been a great journey. So today I've brought a millennial from China, Vanessa.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa. I feel really lucky to be one of the Chinese millennials that fall into this category. And I was born and raised in Shanghai, did my Master of Fashion Marketing and Communications in the UK. And I think it's really lucky for me to, as a Chinese millennials working in the communications industry, I've got the first-hand experience of seeing the industry shifting from traditional PR to digital marketing. And some of you may wonder why we got this tail of a golden fish on our cover today. It's because apparently the millennials' attention span is as short as those of the golden fish. It's as short as 8 seconds. So it makes such an interesting topic for us to discuss with you today.
Thank you. So today's format, we're hoping to keep it very short and punchy. So we're going to give you a quick overview of, insights into these millennials, and then leave you with how you can go about capturing their attention. And then we'll have a few Q&As, and we hope to be wrapped by about 10 a.m. because all of you are very busy and everyone has conference fatigue. I was just in Brussels for the New York Times Luxury Conference, which was interesting, but it was also quite a long conference, and I think a lot of people thought it was a bit too long. So today, who are these Chinese millennials? Vanessa, over to you.
So in our session today, we kind of define Chinese millennials as those who born in mid-80s to 2000. We are the generation growing with the country's economy. That's why we've got more disposable income. No matter there's people like me who was born in the mid-80s and has the opportunity to work with, work in an international environment. That's why we can afford quite decent lifestyle. All those who born in the 90s, who's got the money passed down from their parents and their grandparents because they're the single child who's enjoying the attention of the whole family. And secondly, living in a China way after the Cultural Revolution, we care less about politics, but more about personal enjoyment. Thirdly, obviously with more money to spend, luxury lifestyle is quite a privileged phenomenon between among our generation. We do not only know about big brands, we are also craving for niche labels which show our taste that sets ourselves apart from the others. Last but not least, I think the last point. Last but not least, we are as the same as millennials all over the world. We are obsessed with our mobile phones. Everything through shopping, social networking, to news updates, it's all through the tapping. And Chinese, maybe you know that Chinese consumers are really famous for carrying cash around. That's why we sometimes become the target of the robbery when we're traveling overseas. A true story that happened to me during Paris Fashion Week is that two guys on the motorbike smashed the window of my taxi and grabbed my bag, although I don't have much cash with me, because nowadays it's a totally cash-free world among Chinese millennials, as long as we've got our WeChat and Alipay installed on our phone.
Thanks. So, yeah, next one, thank you. So one of the key points we want to emphasize today is how sophisticated Chinese millennials are. I've been in and out of China since '93, and it's incredible to see how sophisticated, how knowledgeable, how well researched they are. So if you look at the evolution of the Chinese luxury consumer, we've tried to kind of capture it in this slide. You know, when people came first sort of had money to spend in maybe the kind of early '90s, late '80s, you know, it was very much about showing off, about big logos, about being quite brash. And we've really seen this evolution of sophistication from, you know, showing off to being trendy. And really today we're focusing on these last two, which are, you know, the importance of experiences and the importance of, you know, personal enjoyment, whether that's wellness, spa, taking mini breaks, people going away for the weekend, which never used to be something that happened. And today really into this connoisseurship and understanding. And the Chinese are so sophisticated. I'm always impressed, even in our office, we've got about 45 people in Shanghai, and they know brands that I hardly know anything about, and they are so well researched. So it's something to note. China today, the luxury consumer is as sophisticated and knowledgeable as anywhere in the world, and sometimes more so. So, thanks. Next one. Yeah. So we can't talk about Chinese luxury consumers without talking about travelers. This is one of my favorite topics. Today, there are 120 million Chinese who are traveling overseas this year. By 2020, that number's up to 200 million. So if you can go to the next one, thanks. So, you know, when people say, oh, there's so many Chinese in Paris, so many Chinese in London, you have seen nothing yet. You know, 4% of Chinese have a passport today, and that number will go up to 10% in the next few years. So, you know, if you haven't got your shop in order, fix it quickly, because you need to connect with these people before they leave and when they are here, and it needs to be seamless. So today, these travelers, a few key traits. They're younger, they're wealthier, as Vanessa mentioned. They have high disposable income, much higher than their counterparts in the West. Let's not forget they're one-child policy kids. So they have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, lots of other great-grandparents, and lots of disposable income. They want experiences, they're adventurous, they're traveling to far-flung destinations. Actually, Vanessa's a great example. You go off to Marrakesh and Mykonos and all these incredible places. And so the normal city break is not as exciting. Of course, they still travel to Paris and London, but they also want further afield. And they're digital natives. So everything they do when they travel, make sure you're selfie-worthy if you're in the travel industry or in retail, because they want selfie-worthy pictures when they're traveling. Thank you, Leila. Then next.
So let's show you some interesting examples here. Before we came here for our London breakfast meeting, we carried out an interview among 90 Chinese millennials living in Shanghai and Beijing, the first-tier cities in China. So here are some interesting facts we would love to share. Some of you maybe found this quite surprised. First of all, 95% of them had not bought print media in the past year. And we would love to explain that. The reason why is not because they don't read anymore. It's because print media all have extended their channel on social media. So are KOLs who's extremely active on those social media platforms. So speaking of KOLs, or key opinion leader, or what you prefer to call influencers, 72% of them had one favorite KOL to follow on either WeChat or on Weibo, because KOLs of different categories have emerged in recent years. And the last two parts quite phenomenon. Almost all of them had used WeChat on the day that we did the survey. And also all of them had bought something using their phone in the previous week, which shows that mobile commerce is really the current trend.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, you know, even e-commerce is very traditional. So people are not buying on websites anymore. They're buying through their phones. And as part of this survey, some of the millennials we spoke to, they don't even see the need for a computer because they have their phones, so they don't even have a computer. And in China, if we were doing a similar event, we would never be handing out a name card. People would be like, what's that? It's all about, let's scan your WeChat code. People don't use emails anymore. When we do VIP events, we don't invite people by email. We have to invite them by WeChat. So even email is becoming obsolete, which makes it quite difficult for Western brands trying to implement a CRM system because the whole way you connect with people is just so different. So, thank you.
So apparently print is for grandparents, and so for brands who would love to capture the attention of Chinese millennials through communications, we've got some tips for you today. First of all, it's the famous WeChat, and I believe that most of you have downloaded WeChat by now, and let me take you through the WeChat journey. So function-wise, it's like it works like WhatsApp. So you've got it's a closed loop. You have to add your contacts manually through the plus here, and you can do chat, do video call, send voice messaging, just like WhatsApp does. And also, it is combined with functions similar to Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds. So it's called Moments. You can find it here. And I think what matters the most to brand is the it's official accounts function here. This is where the brand official account and media's accounts and KOL's account will lie in. So you can see that I've got Aman official account here, and also I'm following Mr. Bags as my favorite KOLs. So in terms of brand official account, there are two types of account: subscription account and service account. Subscription account allows you to post unlimited frequency of postings. So you can even set up your mini website that using the latest H5 technology. So if you follow us, you will receive an auto reply message, and if you click here, that's the H5 page. You can see how the technology is all about. And
so just to add to that, just to make sure everyone's clear, so on WeChat, brands will open their own WeChat account, and that is almost like your website. So forget about actually building a website. As long as you're on WeChat with all your information, that's where people will go and look for you. So you can save yourself quite a lot of trouble by just having your mini site sit on WeChat.
So the posting will be pushed here, like along with your chat with other contacts. So for service account, as its name stands for, brands can provide basic CRM service, booking and shopping, as long as you are linked to the e-commerce site. Yeah, that's pretty much our WeChat. So
basically, WeChat, we can't live without it. And I think one of the great things about having the Chinese firewall means that we don't have Facebook and Google, which means we are not living in that world. And so we have our own ecosystem of apps. And it's given rise to great creativity in China. And actually, I think this has spearheaded what people are doing in the West. And it's years ahead of what's happening in the US and in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. And let's not forget about Weibo. Weibo is simply the Chinese version of Twitter, and it's an open platform. Nowadays it acts more like a new search engine. And don't forget that celebrities are way more active on Weibo than on WeChat. That's why brands still need to focus on both of the platforms. And let me back again, because I have to tell you one secret of Chinese millennials. The reason why most of the Chinese millennials are actually still on Weibo because their parents are on WeChat. So we kind of feel less of a privacy with our parents monitoring our moments or feeds all the time. That's why Weibo is our preferred platform to stay connected with the same generation.
Yeah, because with WeChat, you use your mobile number to get an account, which means that everyone who knows your mobile number can then follow you. So that means your parents can follow your moments, your feed. But WeChat, Weibo works more like Twitter. So you can have different sort of logins and different names, and so you've got a bit more freedom.
Is there a privacy setting within WeChat that allows people not to follow you unless you've granted the permission?
Yes, you have to accept them.
Right.
So actually it's a closed network, and that's very important for WeChat, because whatever you're posting on your feed, Vanessa can see it, but then you can't see it. And if you're following Vanessa, you still don't know that she's following me. So it's very closed.
But anybody on your feed?
Yes,
sees it.
exactly. Thanks, Leila.
Now let's talk about KOLs. You must be very interested in the Chinese KOLs. There are different tiers of KOLs. Top tier KOLs with millions of followers, second tier with hundreds of thousands of followers, and also KOLs with less of an online platform, online presence, but with more industry influence. And so for KOLs, I think it's really important for brands to be accurate and smart to select your right KOLs, because obviously not all brands can afford top-tier KOLs, and it's quite, their content posting tends to be really commercial as well. So for example, we used to work a lot with Mr. Bags.
Yes.
When he's just graduated from Columbia University and just started his career in China doing social media. So we would work with them for one of our luxury leather goods brand. And back at that time, the collaboration is really organic and nothing too commercial. While nowadays, he's just been to the New York luxury
Yeah, he was talking
conference.
at New York Times conference.
Yeah, so he is a bit of exposed at the
Yes.
moment now. So I think collaboration with KOLs is really like relationship. Timing is also everything. And we work with a lot of niche brands. So for those brands, in most of cases, we recommend some KOLs with less but loyal followers to ensure the engagement. And last, don't forget that identifying your KOL is not a one-off job done. Make sure that you've got long-term relations with them and you develop content with them together to make it really editorial and attractive to the audience.
Yeah, thank you. So next, we just want to keeping talking about KOLs. I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of questions about KOLs. We get asked a lot. But I think what's really fascinating is two things. One is how some KOLs can really drive commerce, and obviously that's very important if you're trying to shift product. And there's some great examples in the booklet that we prepared for you. But I think that when you're developing your content to commerce strategy, make sure that you're working with that KOL to develop the content with him. What doesn't work is when brands give the KOL content and say, post that, because usually it's not so relevant. So localization of content is really important. Another key thing to mention is that people online really love limited editions, bespoke, anything that's personalized. Now, please, if you're planning a Chinese New Year campaign and you're planning to put, a dog or a rooster, whatever, just forget that, because these Chinese millennials think that's terribly tacky and they would never buy something like that. So I think that yes, limited editions are key. They love having something special that's limited, but they really do not want anything that is considered cool. So Chinese New Year special editions, red dragons and all that business, that doesn't work for them. So thank you. And next one.
Now, I think you've got a little bit of information about the two key platforms on social media, and you know how to select your KOLs, and you also understand that they can drive content to commerce. The next step is to really make it all integrated, especially during those engagement campaign on WeChat, because brands love to do engagement campaign in China, and always make sure that you've got mechanism that leads to online to offline activation, and also that maybe in other way, they are connected to your e-commerce site that can help you to drive business directly. And I think one example we would love to share, which is doing online to offline activation really in a smart way, is Chanel. Chanel Beauty, the category, they took over one trendy cafe in Shanghai earlier this year and transformed into a pop-up store. So in the store, they've got their latest beauty product displayed, and they've got celebrity ambassadors visit in the first few days. So it create a really huge buzz in town, and there was a queue outside the cafe every day. Seeing that, Chanel launched a new function on their WeChat, so all their followers can register a space on WeChat to avoid the queue on site. So it's really a clever way to offer this special service to your followers. and the social media buzz was really intense, and there was thousands of pictures sharing online.
So it's not just about the experience offline, it's also how can you create a digital experience for them. And even the Coco Cafe in Shanghai is a great example, but for all those millennials who maybe live in Chengdu and Hangzhou and wherever they might live, the fact that they were able to actually access through digital is very key. So you need to really try and make it seamless. Thanks. And on to... So in terms of how you capture these KOLs, we don't want to forget to mention the traveling. So in terms of how you capture the millennials, we don't want to forget travel, because when you look at statistics, 80% of what they're buying when they travel, they already know they're buying it before they've even left China. So they are so well researched, and if you're not connecting with them in China, then it will be much tougher to drive them into your store in London, for example. So so just back to the, so these travelers, a lot of the work we do, and actually Harrods is here today, we've been working with Harrods for a number of years, is really positioning Harrods as a key destination when the Chinese are traveling to London, and really doing a lot of work in China to tell the story, talk about the exclusives, and drive KOLs in store so that there's content being created by KOLs who are going into the store. So I think that don't forget the travelers. They are very influenced by KOLs. They find their inspiration for travel on WeChat, on Weibo, but also all the localized apps that they're using. So C-Trip, and all the Chinese versions of the apps that you might be using that are not here, but then you need to make sure you're on them. So I think that travelers is absolutely key, and as we mentioned, only 4% of people have passports today in China, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of them. So make sure that you're integrating that experience seamlessly, so that when they come into your store in London, you can take Alipay and WeChat Pay, and you've got your QR to grab their data as well, and that you can offer them an experience if possible. That's always a winner. Thank you. So on to, we're right on time. So we wanted to just kind of frame this presentation with some key things that we would love you to take away if you're thinking about how to capture the millennials. So we've got 5 key points to talk to you about to wrap it up. Millennials.
So first of all, know your millennials. So know what we love and what kind of platform we are on, and what our shopping behaviors are. I think that's really important. And second of all, social media is everything, especially on WeChat. I wake up checking my WeChat as the first thing. So just get ready, get your brand there to capture our attention 24/7. Ecommerce, we love shopping, and we love shopping on mobile phones. So get your link there. If one of your social media objectives is to drive sales, I think curate your KOLs. It's not about how many followers they've got, it's about how relevant they are to your brand.
Yeah, I think on the KOLs, when we surveyed our millennials in the last few weeks, we can't over-exaggerate how important these KOLs are at the moment in China. And in terms of KOL marketing, it's 5 years ahead of anywhere else in the world. It's becoming incredibly sophisticated. You've got KOLs who are doing collaborations with brands to have an exclusive collection. So the KOL then starts taking 10% of each bag sold. And so, and they're amazing results. I mean, you'll see in the booklet, but really KOLs are key. And I think we've got a great sentence in our book, which is it's not a sort of one-off digital quickie with a KOL. It's a long-term relationship.
Is it a financial relationship?
It depends. It depends. I think some of the really big KOLs cost so much money, but then you might just end up with one post on Weibo, and I would say that's like a drop in the ocean. So I think don't be fooled by numbers. I think it's much more interesting for brands to find the right kind of KOLs and build a really believable relationship. We love working with KOLs who appreciate the brands we're working with and who actually really love the brands. And so even when we're not, collaborating with them or paying them, they're still posting for us. So I think it's like a media relationship. It's all about relationships as well. And it's It's not just going to someone and saying, here's 50,000 RMB, please post something on WeChat, because tomorrow that same guy will be posting for your competitor. So I think, and don't just look at KOLs in your industry. We work with a lot of beauty brands, but of course we work with beauty KOLs, but people who are buying premium beauty, they're traveling, they're into design, they're into fashion. So mix it up, spread your bets with different kinds of KOLs, and don't forget the micro KOLs, who are those people who will have smaller audiences and a lot of engagement, and who can really have a lot of influence. So we love working with the small grassroots KOLs as well. Yeah. And our last point is get your shop in order. So that goes back to our traveling millennials. It's so important to make sure that when they come to London, when they go to Paris, wherever they're going, you are on their radar. You are one of those 80% on that list that they want to buy and they want to come and see. And you've got great stories to tell. There's so much, so much creativity. I think that Chinese millennials love British brands. We recently just worked with Best of British, which was an exhibition in Shanghai for 150 British brands. It was the first time they held it in China, and it was amazing. There was such a turnout, so many young Chinese who came to see and feel and touch these brands. And I think that Britain and British brands are in a unique position, because a lot of the brands here are quite niche, they're very creative, and as the Chinese luxury consumer has evolved and is more and more sophisticated, he or she is looking for that, I'm in the know with a special brand that not everyone has. So that does worry the likes of Louis Vuitton and the big brands, because they've seen a drop at the very sophisticated level of consumer. But we're not too worried, because they're hundreds of millions of people who are going up the chain in China with more and more disposable income, and they want a Louis Vuitton. So thank you. So we're going to open up for some questions. We're spot on time. So please, if anyone's got any questions, we
I wanted to ask about tone of voice. When I look at, for example, how a Chanel might present themselves in China or WeChat, it feels slightly more playful. What's your, is that a strategy across the board? What's your view on it?
I'll input a little to Vanessa. I think that what's interesting about WeChat and these official accounts is that they are commercial accounts, and so I think that yes, clients do need to adapt the way that they're putting out their content onto WeChat, because otherwise it's just very dull and very boring, and no one ever reads it. So that might be a reason.
I think the other reason is that because of the feature of the platform, it's for communication, and all the feeds will come up with your context conversation, and it's like a friend talking to you, because it's where they will appear. So in terms of the content strategy, normally we will set for a brand is to give it a personality. It's like a person, maybe Chanel, she's an elegant lady talking to you on WeChat platform, so all the tone of voice will be curated with a personal view, a humanity view that you feel it's quite talking to a machine, or like official news bureau, things like that. And also that is why we always set a slightly different tone on WeChat and Weibo. Weibo is an official news update platform, while on WeChat, and that's obviously a different platform. So you have to have the difference there to keep the engagement. Mm-hmm.
Question?
Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between service accounts and
Subscription.
And also particularly what that means for somebody operating here.
It should go back to your social media objective, is whether it's to just instant uploading content to your followers, or you are going to provide some certain kind of services. So for subscription, for service account, you can only post 4 times a month. It's limited, so that's for service account, because the major function of that account is to provide service. Booking, chat, how to talk to the customer service back end every time, and that's the function of that. While for subscription account, it's like most of media are operating at the moment. It's to share news on a quite on a more timely manner, I would say. So that's the major function, major difference.
I mean, there are, you know, they're constantly updating WeChat, and WeChat is always evolving. So there is talk that there might be merging. We're in touch with WeChat on a regular basis, but I think the functionality of WeChat also evolves a lot. So it's important to kind of keep on top of that, because one day you might actually find out that, you know, they're changing the way it works, and so it's an ongoing challenge.
Just a quick question, actually, as a foreigner, do you have access to both accounts equally? Is there any sort of restrictions that come along with registering?
As long as you follow the account, then you have access to it. But you know, WeChat is in English, so for those of you who've read, it's in English, so it's very easy for all of you to be on WeChat and to follow official accounts. Obviously, the official accounts might be in Chinese, but then you can at least sort of scroll and see what they're doing. But I think just on the official accounts, you know, even though people do follow, there is less engagement with those official accounts. You know, the viewership number, which is at the bottom of the article you might read, those numbers are actually going down because a lot of people are not sort of reading them as much because there's so much content. But there's nothing like working with a KOL to be pushing your WeChat account and sort of vice versa. So I think it's doing it all together that is working the best. Yeah.
If you had a small budget, what would you spend it on?
If you had a small budget,
What's the essential things? What are the essential things?
hire us.
Budget may not stretch.
I think if I was a small brand, I would go after KOLs, but I would look at who are the KOLs who I can have fall in love with my brand and find the right kind of KOLs and sort that out. I think that, you know, media is very important, and you know, we do work obviously with a lot of media platforms, but it's about having media on WeChat that are following and working with us. But I would say probably KOLs. Yeah.
Are the Chinese millennials inspired by KOLs outside of China?
That's a great question.
Yes, we are, but only to a very limited demographic, because you need a VPN to access the world, basically.
Yeah.
What's
So.
the VPNs? I mean, that's China shutting down on that. But how much? But is that still? Does everybody have access to that?
No. It's very limited.
Yeah. And recently, I mean, a couple of weeks ago when the government was having their big congress in Beijing, you could not access a website unless it was hosted in China. So imagine if you're trying to drive people to your website to purchase. It was absolutely, everything was down for 3 days, and you know, Xi Jinping has famously announced that by February there'll be no more VPNs in China, which means that I don't know how we will manage, but we'll have to get a link somehow to Hong Kong, long cable. But I think that it is very worrying. But in the luxury fashion world, people somehow have a VPN, or sometimes it works, but they are on Instagram. But you know, don't really be fooled if you have a Chinese KOL who's telling you he's very influential on Instagram. It doesn't really mean anything in China. You know, I'm always surprised by brands who say to us they're working with a Chinese KOL who's really busy on Instagram. It's not going to touch your demographic. So.
And back to your question, a lot of KOLs are actually, especially Korean ones, they are on Weibo. They are operating their Chinese version of social media. Like for example, me, she's really big all over the world, and now she's on Weibo.
Well, a lot, even David Beckham and loads of British celebrities are on Weibo as well. But yeah.
Sorry, one last question. Actually, could you actually talk a little bit more about the relevance of sort of where do they sit? I mean, obviously those are very important, but kind of importance a bit more on, like, obviously WeChat more important, or Weibo more important, so what sort of content?
I think for content-wise, it's different format. Weibo, you can only post 140 Chinese characters on that, so you have to be sharp and let picture talk, and it will allow you to post up to 9 pictures in one post. So the content is in a different format, while on WeChat, it's like a long article. You have to give it a theme and give it an editorial angle for it to flow. So back to the first question, like I said, Weibo is more for official news update, for announcement, for quick update like that. And for WeChat, you need to give it a personality. You need to give it an editorial theme from time to time. So yeah, it's
but
basic.
also on Weibo, the government is clamping down on the commercialization of KOLs. So actually, KOLs now who let's say you're Hermes and you're paying a KOL a lot of money to post on Weibo, if they at Hermes, it will be pulled down unless Weibo is now taking money from that. So even if you hashtag or you at
a link, yeah.
It's very, very restricted now. So the KOLs are also sort of worrying because their income is being kind of restrained by these new rules as well. So, yes.
When there's access in China, not like it used to be 10 or 15 years ago, and you say that Chinese travelers already know in advance what they're going to buy outside, so why would they buy physically outside of China? Is it because they have access to other products? Is it price driven? Is it experience driven? What do you reckon is the most important aspect there?
It's definitely is still one of the key factors because of tax and back to experience.
So on average, luxury products in China are anywhere from 30% to 50% more expensive than here.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that price is a key driver, and I think that of course the experience. There's nothing like going into the store and then taking your selfie and saying to my friends, "I bought this, Erdem dress in London." So I think that there's also that kind of show off, in the know again with the selfies. So I think that they will always shop when they travel. I think it's a key part of traveling, but experiences have also come in. So a few years ago, when Chinese would travel overseas, they would spend very, very little, for example, in Paris on hotels. They would stay in really sort of basic hotels outside of Paris, and then they'd come in the day and spend loads of money in the shops. Today, you see that in the 5-star hotels of Paris, you have lots of Chinese, and they're happy to spend on experiences, on beautiful hotels, and that's really, it's really changed. And they're traveling in small groups with friends, so the whole sort of demographic of how they travel is also changed. I mean, of course, you still have the tour buses who will stay in those cheaper hotels and still go shopping in the day. I mean, I always find it's very funny because Vanessa and I go to Paris regularly, and when we go into a luxury shop, everyone rushes to Vanessa, and I'm like, hello, and they're not interested. They're all around Vanessa trying to sort of sell her product, but it's really changed. And I think that the retailers are really really excited when the Chinese arrive. So, yes.
Do you advise that physical, if you've got a bricks and mortar store in London, that you should also be accepting Alipay and WePay? And do you to facilitate, because somebody told me that Alipay is not as popular as WePay, but that WePay only want to work with stores if you have multiple locations, and that actually they're not interested in kind of small independent retailers. They want the big
Sure.
kind of conglomerates.
I'm not certain about the specifics of how they go about setting these stores, these systems, but I think absolutely you need to have Alipay and WeChat Pay. I think Harrods here is a great example of having embraced those technologies, and I think you just need to make it as easy as possible. I mean, we do not use cash in China anymore. We never have cash on us, and that's why the battery life of your phone is the most important thing in your life. Because if you do not have a phone, you can't get home, you can't eat, you can't shop, you can't do anything, you can't speak to your friends. So I think, yes, make it really seamless, and I think they will really welcome that.
Can you speak a little bit to the loyalty factor? As you said, they have those die-hard followings like the Chanel's, VPNs of this world. When it comes to hotels or travel aspects, are there any trends emerging about the loyalty in terms of return factors and really embedding in brands?
one that a lot of hotel brands are trying to grapple with. You know, there's always the example of Hilton. They did the Huanying program, which is welcome. It means welcome in Chinese. So they've really tried to attract the traveling Chinese to their hotels by doing some, you know, great campaigns in China and having, you know, all the collaterals when you visit a Hilton in Chinese and preparing all that before people arrive. I mean, just to share an example, we've been working with Aman for a long time in China. So Aman is a very, you know, I think most of you know, it's a very discerning, sophisticated brand. And when we first started working with Aman 7 years ago, you know, to pay $1,000 for a room that didn't have a TV and there was no karaoke bar downstairs, people were like, what? And, you know, we've really done a lot of work on sort of telling the story. But I think today we meet people. I mean, recently we met a couple who were living in Chengdu who were 26 years old, and they had traveled to 8 Amans, and they didn't even speak English, but they were just going to a country because it had an Aman. So I think that, you know, you do get people who are very, very loyal to brands, but I think it is trickier, and I think that Chinese now are starting to collect airline points. They're starting to understand that actually by having loyalty programs, you can also get out of it. So I think it will come. Yeah.
Is it more at the more sophisticated travel, I mean, at a certain age group, more, you know?
Yes, but I think, I mean, if you look at Vanessa, she always stays in Airbnb, right, when you travel. And they love Airbnb. It's been a huge, huge hit. I love the story that with your friends, you rent an Airbnb just for one evening to have a party in a house, and they order dinner in. But that's a new thing that's happening as well. Yeah. So, but I think one of my key learnings with hospitality groups is that often they function in quite a federalized way. So when people will visit, let's say, a property in New York, the New York people will not be informed enough about the Chinese who might be coming. And so there is no QR code. It's very easy for you to have, you know, an official account for that property where when people arrive, they scan and then they receive the menus in Chinese, and they can have, you know, all your sort of hotel information just there, so that when they arrive, you can push the messages and say, hope you had a great time, do you fancy a spa? Here's the spa menu. And it's very easy to do that. The technology is so well done. So.
Are WeChat and Weibo as popular nationals as they are in China, or you know, have the Western platforms started to sort of take part? If you're a Chinese national based in the UK, do you still use Weibo and WeChat as much as you do? If you're
Definitely. I keep contact with my friends, Chinese friends in the UK on WeChat all the time. Yeah.
It's true, actually. There's such a demographic of Chinese in the UK as well to connect with.
Do you think those two are here to stay? It's like the solid platforms.
WeChat and Weibo.
Is there anything else bubbling away?
We'd love to know. I mean, we're always on the lookout, and in your book we have at the back quite a few other apps that we're introducing to all of you, because of course it's a Weibo WeChat world, but there are a lot of great apps. We haven't even touched on live streaming. You know, live streaming in China is huge, and you might wonder why people are you know, looking for hours at these girls and guys who, you know, are reciting poetry, and you know, they're doing all sorts of weird stuff on live streaming. But actually, they make so much money, those live streamers, because their fans are pushing them money when they're performing, and so live streamers are really important as well. So.
And can you live stream through WeChat?
You normally use other apps. Yeah, you would use another app.
Is the app within WeChat?
It's not, but
It's
you would
separate.
basically, you would live stream and then you would link it to your WeChat so that people who are following you on WeChat know that you're live streaming.
Okay.
And then they would click and they'd go, yeah. So, yes?
How popular are the Chinese Millennials do you expect to on JD.com and sort of luxury pavilions within that provide? Is that seen as a welcome place to shop today?
JD.com.
With a luxury pavilion
Yes.
out of Alibaba?
Well, and the Farfetch relationship. I think if you look at last weekend was Singles Day, so Double 11, 11th of November. There were 19 billion pounds of commerce that happened in 24 hours. So that is a festival that originally Tmall and Alibaba really sort of tried to own, it's now across every single platform. And I think that buying luxury online is not a problem for Chinese. I'm always amazed when I see what people are buying, and when we speak to e-commerce partners, and the average basket of what these Chinese can buy online is really, really high. So there's no barrier to buying. I think one of the key things with China is that the logistics work incredibly well. So if I want to send a post-it note to someone 20 kilometers away in Shanghai, it costs me £1. And the guy will show up at the office, he'll take it, and off he goes. And so, and you never lose a package. I mean, it really, really works very well. So I think that it's very easy. I think the only key issue with Ecommerce is that they expect to receive it today or tomorrow. There's not that much patience to wait 7 days. They really want it now. So that's quite tricky. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, yes?
Do you think it's, can we post on WeChat in English, or do you think it's necessary to tailor our content to translate?
You're from which brand are you?
Temporary.
Oh, I would, yeah, it has to be in Chinese.
Yeah.
I mean, I think definitely. I think one of the things I always say is that white people in China have no money. Whenever I go to an event and there are loads of expats or foreigners, I think they've got it completely wrong. So I mean, you never want to try and be talking to Western or non-Chinese in China. Anyway, they will all shop overseas because they travel, and they wouldn't buy anything in China anyway. Yeah. So.
Does content expire on WeChat?
Does content expire?
Nope, it's always there.
So what you sent me today, I'll be able to click on it.
Yes, actually, if you scan, whoever has WeChat, if you scan this, then you receive the digital presentation of today, and it's an H5 format. So H5 is a mini site. So a lot of people talk about H5 in China. So this is an H5, and yes, it shouldn't expire. If it does, let me know.
But I mean,
In theory.
No, it should be there. Yeah, definitely.
And if you're doing deals, so you say on Singles Day, would that expire, or do you just remove that offer?
You would, for a Singles Day, it was 24 hours. So that's why the whole of China was staying up till midnight. And I think they'd already made something like £10 billion of sales by 7 a.m. So everyone, even in our office, we have a WeChat group, and they were all posting at sort of 1, 2, 3 in the morning about what they'd bought. So it's quite interesting. But the deals are really amazing for Singles Day.
Can I just, following up on working, obviously if you're going to post in Chinese on WeChat or Weibo, you need to work with someone in China, a Chinese-speaking person, and you need to presumably have a superb relationship with that person to interpret your message from outside. But my other question is really about, you asked when content expires, but I've been told so many times by the people we work with in China, that talking of your 8-second title, is that people will leave, they'll leave your channel. If they don't like what they see, they go and you can't get them back. So I'm just interested in how you do keep your content relevant all the time in order to prevent this sort of departure.
It's a one we grapple with a lot because we only work in the luxury premium space, so all of our clients are non-Chinese. And so it's our job to constantly be educating clients on the fact that we do need local assets. We often do photo shoots in Shanghai, or we'll take our KOLs out onto the street and put them in product, but you have to have relevant content. And it's difficult. It's how do you keep these people engaged and interested? So that's why you do see a drop-off on official WeChat channels about how many readers. But then you can also monitor the content they love. So you can also draw great insight and stats from, if you're posting an F&B offer, or if you're posting a spa offer, or you can sort of try and work out. And what you can do on WeChat is you can actually segment your data from the back end. So you can work out, where people are through geolocation, so that, if you're a hotel brand, you don't want to be pushing a Sunday brunch in Beijing to 20,000 followers. You want to make sure that you're pushing it to people who are based in Beijing who might be interested in going to a brunch on Sunday. So I think you've got to be smart about not pushing content that's useless. Yeah.
And just about frequency, what would you say is a relevant number of posts? Is there sort of frequency you recommend 3 times a day for a brand? Or
For
is it
WeChat
overwhelming?
or Weibo?
For WeChat. Is it overwhelming?
Well, WeChat, you're already your or not you have your subscription or your service account.
But if you have an open account, what?
If you have where you can post, I mean, media are posting all the time. So Vogue posts every day, and they'll post about 4 articles. So I think it really depends the industry, and yeah.
For brands account, I think it's 2 to 4 times per month. Yes, industry practice at the moment.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work doing great content. That's the other thing. It's not just 140 characters. It's a news article. It's like a lifestyle article with pictures and video and everything, and moving animations. So it takes quite some time. Yes.
Talking about that, do you find that animations work better than stills?
Yeah, that's how we check our statistics. That will tell us that posts with GIF, the format of GIF works better than still images. Yeah.
Should we take one more question, if there is one?
I've got another.
Okay.
The millennials in the digital age, but what is your view on print advertising now? Is it actually relevant?
Print advertising. It's a great. I was just talking to someone in Brussels yesterday who runs a media agency, and they are really suffering in China because their clients are moving that budget to KOLs. So I think a lot of our clients don't advertise in print, and that's always been the case, and we've always worked around it and managed to have great results without being able to lean on the fact that they were investing in advertising. But I think today of course the big brands still want to be visible on the billboards and in Vogue China, but I would always question, Vogue China, they might have 300 or more pages a month, and when we survey our millennials, not one of them is buying print. So I think you can probably understand what I'm saying. We don't really think print advertising is that important. No. So great. Well, thank you so much to all of you for the questions as well. Thank you so much, and a big thank you to the Asprey team as well for hosting us today. Grab some more breakfast if you've got a bit more time. Be around if you've got more questions, and please keep in touch and let us know how we can help on your China journey. Okay.